So the Freedom Flotilla is underway. They have had some weather problems, but as we will see, it looks like that got straightened out. So this has been launching from multiple ports. Here is a march in Genoa. 50,000 came out to march for Palestine. That's one of the launching ports of the flotilla. So let's take a look at some video of that. And Francesca Albanese actually quote tweeted that as the global Samud flotilla sets sail to Gaza, may Gaza hear this collective cry. Gaza, you are not alone. You have stirred the world from its deep sleep. Amen. So this went viral. This is one of the Italian dock workers warning that if communication is lost with the flotilla, the port workers will immediately block all shipments to Israel. And he actually threatens to block shipments to Europe. I want this to be, here, let me turn this down. I want this to be clear to everyone, really to everyone. Around mid-September, these boats will arrive near the coast of Gaza, close to the critical zone. If we lose contact with our boats, with our comrades, even for just 20 minutes, we will shut down all of Europe. I've written it down so I won't forget it. Together with our union, together with all the dock workers who stand with us, together with the whole city of Genoa, from this region, 13 to 14,000 containers leave every year for Israel. Not a single nail will leave anymore. We will launch an international strike. We will block the roads. We will block the schools. We will block everything. Our young women and men must come back without a scratch. And all this cargo, which belongs to the people and is going to the people, must reach its destination down to the very last box. That is all I have to say. So very base dock worker there.
Yeah.
This is, I believe he reported it. Okay, this pronunciation is going to be rough. I believe that's a Turkish name. Furkan Gosakara. So many famous people trying to reach the Gaza. Israel will be brutally exposed on social media to literally billions of people. And he got some great footage of the people. This is in Barcelona now, which was, it seems, the main launching point where people are boarding the ships yesterday.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Where are you from? Where are you from?
Basque country. Be careful. Basque country. You know?
What's the country?
Basque country.
Yeah. From
Spain.
Bilbao, yes.
Thank you
yes.
so much. Gracias. Where are you from, bro? Where are you from?
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. Where do you come from?
I am Palestinian.
Palestinian.
But I live in New Zealand. I live in Aotearoa.
You are going to Gaza?
I'm inshallah.
Yeah,
that is the plan.
Yeah.
To open a humanitarian corridor for all the Palestinian people that are calling for us to wake up.
Thank you so much.
They are the heroes. Keep watching them. Keep your eyes on them.
Thank you so much.
All right. You also have a lot of high-profile people going out on this flotilla. It's the largest humanitarian flotilla in history. It's more than 50 boats from at least 44 countries that are going to converge in the Mediterranean on Thursday. under this effort. So this is Mandla Mandela, the grandson of Nelson Mandela, speaking to the crowds. He's going to be on the flotilla.
Million people in Gaza are being starved to death. Who is the one that is perpetuating the violence? Who is the one that is a threat, not only to Palestinians, but to you and I, to the entire global community? There is only one threat: apartheid Israel and Netanyahu and his regime.
And this is Irish comedian Tyg Hickey. He was going to go, but he made a rather alarming discovery and decided not to. So here he is.
Great sadness to say that I don't think I'm actually going to be able to take part in the Global Smooth Flotilla. It's been a tough couple of days, to be honest with you, but I was willing to accept the nausea, constant seasickness, people snoring in my room, being away from my kids, ultimately probably conceivably ending up in the custody of the most psychopathic army the world has ever seen. I put up with all that, but I mean, everyone has their limit. Stop the boats.
So just cracking wise there, cracking wise. I'm kidding. He went with the flotilla, just making a little joke about the Union Jack being on one of the boats. So Liam Cunningham, former Hand of the King on Game of Thrones, Irish actor, as you'd expect, a lot of Irish representation. He gave one of the most arresting speeches, playing the singing of a Palestinian little girl who was killed by the IOF forces. So let's take a look at a little of that.
I'd like to introduce you to a young lady, and her name is Fatima, and she's absolutely gorgeous. If you can see her there, and she has a lovely voice, and I'm going to let you listen to a couple of seconds of her singing. Okay, one sec. So Fatima is singing that song because she's making arrangements for her own funeral. She wants that song sung in the event of her death. What sort of a world have we slid into? What sort of a human hole have we found ourselves in when children, beautiful angels like that of 5 or 6 years old, are making their own funeral arrangements? Where does that leave us? How are our children and our grandchildren going to look back at this horrific episode in the existence of our species?
And Greta Thunberg is also on the flotilla once again, in spite of Israeli threats, which we will get into a little bit.
Dozens and dozens of boats came from Palestinians when we were talking with them last time during the Madeleine mission. So we are doing the bare minimum to uphold international law and to do our duty as citizens of the free world. And this is the biggest attempt to break the siege of Gaza ever. And we are mobilizing with people from all over the world. Now we're going to our first stop, which will be in Tunis, where many, many people are waiting to onboard dozens of more boats, and then we will be joined by dozens of more boats from Italy, and then by Greece, and then we will be continuing towards Gaza.
Okay, she is taking particular risk. Israel plans to imprison Greta Thunberg and declare her a terrorist for trying to break the siege and deliver food to Gaza, according to the Telegraph. The Israeli National Security Minister is drafting plans to detain Greta Thunberg and company in terrorist-level conditions and seize their vessels for repurposing as a maritime force for police operations. Now, I forget his name. Is that Gavir?
Yes.
That Gavir? He's the same one who said it shouldn't be illegal to spit on Christians
Right.
in an interview on Israeli TV.
Well, he's a terrorist
That it's a
himself. I mean, he's
custom.
been convicted.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course he's a terrorist.
He's been convicted by the Israeli government. Like, that's not just a saying. Like, he's actually been tried. He's a criminal by Israeli standards.
Yeah, yeah, and yet he's a high-ranking cabinet official,
well,
nonetheless.
Exactly.
Yeah. Most countries, you would say, they're not going to put Greta Thunberg in a torture dungeon. Not Israel. Who's going to hold them accountable? Who's going to hold them to account? The United States. As long as the United States is willing to give them money and weapons, they have impunity. So she's showing a great deal of courage, in particular, because you do get the sense, as sick as the Israelis are, they want to make an example of her. And I think once they've had you in custody, when they release you, it's with the understanding that if you return, they're going to throw the book at you.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So this is from the official account of the flotilla. They've set sail after weather delays. The boats are back on track with their mission to break the siege, and their journey continues. The wind is in their sails, and so is our global family. So they released a little bit of video.
I love you, all the people. I love you.
When you're ready, everyone rolling?
So Dropsite actually has a reporter on the boat. This is from them. The Global Samud Flotilla, the largest civilian mission to break Gaza's siege, launches today with 50 ships from 44 countries, over 50 ships. Dropsite editor Alex Colston is on board and will be reporting live as it sails from Barcelona toward Gaza. And this is Claire Daly. Fair play to Greta Thunberg and all on board the Gaza flotilla for carrying the hopes and demands of citizens of the world for an end to Israel's genocide. Western governments, hang your heads in shame and stop enabling Zionism. Long live Palestine, long live Gaza. Now, they did run into some rough weather. This dropped not long before we went on the air. So this is the latest.
So last night was a rough night. We had a much stronger storm than we anticipated, and 4 of our smaller vessels did have to turn back for safety concerns. Everybody is okay, but wanted to be safe, and so those vessels turned back. The flotilla is continuing. One thing I do want to say is that this is a civilian fleet. So we had to buy these boats, equip these boats over the past 2 months. And so things like this happen when you have to do things like this. Things like this happen when civilians have to do what governments are not willing to do to break this illegal siege and this genocide. If a government wanted to step in, they would have more than the vessel capacity to bring all the aid that is needed to Gaza without risking vessels like we've had to. But governments have failed, and the people have to step up. Everyone is okay, I want to reiterate that, and the flotilla is continuing. We won't be intimidated by weather, we won't be intimidated by threats. Everyone is okay, and we'll get more updates when we can.
That's perfect.
Okay.
We are continuing. I had to add my own thought of the same thing.
In terms of the flotilla itself, it's really a distillation of the illegality of everything Israel is and does. You have a civilian fleet of ships coming in, self-funded, unarmed, with missions that are completely humanitarian in nature, and now they're going to threaten to lock Greta Thunberg up as a terrorist. Yeah, because the first time was kind of the warning, and as I understand, one of your conditions of release is that you won't come back.
Yeah, right.
And so now
they did that with Lafredo, right?
Yes, I believe so. Yes, they told Alfredo, "Don't come back." I'm sure you didn't have to tell him twice not to come back. Yeah. So now that these threats are, I mean, it just shows you everything about who they are, and what they do as a state is illegal. The occupation itself is illegal. The blockade is illegal. The use of starvation as a weapon of war, of course, blatantly illegal. And if they weren't so committed to pursuing that strategy, what issue could there be with a humanitarian vessel coming onto the shores of Gaza? Don't forget, they're not going to Israel; they're going to Gaza. I mean, that tells you everything right there. Which we
Right.
know it's an occupation. Like we know, like it feels, just as our next segment does. It feels strange articulating this because it's just so obvious at this point that you almost feel like the next story we're doing, I had to talk myself into doing it because it's the most obvious thing in the world. I'm talking about the genocide experts deeming this a genocide, right? You almost feel strange even saying it because it's like if we came on here and did a show about how 2+2 = 4, right? Who
Right.
wants to watch
Right.
that, right?
Right.
Boring. But it has to be said because this is the world we live in, and people act on these assumptions, and it's just really astounding to see. And part of doing this Uhuru project, learning from the chairman about colonialism and practice and stuff, it reaffirms what I've been saying all along, which is that, yeah, look, we're Americans, so I guess we have a duty to do what we can, but ultimately the solution to this is not coming from within these borders in these United States. It's just not. I mean, you look at the rest of the world is almost in one voice on the same page on this. We are the barrier. Obviously, we are the obstacle. We're the ones who veto these ceasefire resolutions at the UN, right? We're the ones who are backing Israel to the hilt. Even as European country after European country, many of which are pretty friendly to Israel, are saying they're going to recognize a Palestinian state at the UN General Assembly, later this month. The United States is sanctioning the Palestinian representatives so that they can't come. Like,
Right.
we are
Right.
clearly the obstacle
Right.
here. And so, yeah, we have a duty to do what we can, but we also have to have the humility to understand that the solution is going to come from the rest of the world. This country is just too far gone at this point to lead any sort of change in that way. It's not to say we can't do our part to sort of, pull up the back end of that to the extent that we can, but the hope is not here in the US, obviously. It's just it's painfully obvious at this point, I think.
I definitely, spending time with the chairman is very inspiring figure. One of the points he made when we really got into theory towards the end of the interview, and he made this point a few times, was, part of his problem with a lot of Marxists or communists is that very often they don't address the colonial question. And he
Right.
really very strongly emphasized the point that the whole capitalist system is dependent on colonialism. Like you can't address the one without addressing the other. And Israel is a perfect example of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yes, that point of the interviews that we have is very revealing and I think very insightful because what happens when people do voice those concerns? Well, a lot of times they get shut down from within the left by saying, "Well, you're being divisive and polarizing for
Right.
bringing that up." Why? Because this is a majority white country and you don't want to alienate white people by talking like that. Well, that's just the truth. Like there's never been a left there's never been a successful left that doesn't address that and reckon with that. And so trying to sort of like sweep that under the rug and indulge this fantasy that if we can only win enough Archie Bunkers back to, militant labor activism, we're going to overthrow capitalism. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. The path always runs through colonized people. It's not about the color of your
Right.
skin. It's about the power dynamics under which
Right.
you live.
Well,
And
because at
if you
the
don't have a critique of that and you don't act on that in the way that these groups like the Uhuru movement does, then you're just jerking off at the end of the day. Sorry to put it so crudely, but that's ultimately what it is. Like people have to have the maturity to reckon with that because it's inescapable. And that's what this Israel thing is. This is colonialism. That is an inescapable dynamic.
Right.
You can't talk about it without
Right.
discussing that. And white supremacy, again, this is a word that the elements of the PMC left have poisoned, so it's hard to talk about that. White
Right.
supremacy is a function of that. In other words, it is I should say it functions within that. It's not a fun. It functions within that. It is a lot of what fuels that, because it is what gets a lot of people to co-sign something that they wouldn't normally co-sign, because it makes them feel like the in-group in some sort of power position, even though ultimately they have no real power position.
Yes, and you could definitely argue, because really, Yeshitela is arguing that black should be at the vanguard of any revolution. And, just on a practical level, going back to what you were saying about bringing in Archie Bunkers, we touched a little bit on the Weather Underground, because I'm pretty familiar with that history. And I asked him, well, how did you all feel about the fact that they could just kind of leave the revolution when it wasn't fun anymore, and they were able to get good lawyers because they came from rich families mostly. They were able to just leave. That's part of the problem. For white revolutionaries, there's always going to be the offer of mainstreaming back into the ruling class.
Right, exactly.
Whereas colonized people, because of the underlying racism, never have the option really of becoming full-fledged members of the ruling class.
Right.
They can always at best be members with an asterisk, where you're only admitted into those halls as long as you do the bidding of the colonizers to a T and without a fault, very much like Obama did with his Citibank cabinet, right?
Right, exactly.
His position there was dependent on his subservience to the same power structures that existed without him. And that's what Yeshitela defines as neocolonialism, where you take a guy like Obama and put his face on the same policies. But yes, that is why when you get a group like DSA that's almost entirely a bunch of white kids, they don't have much to say beyond domestic policy as a rule. And he made that point too, that very often what it's about is just making things better for themselves.
Right, exactly.
Please clap.